They built the world's first temple, then they buried it, and no one knows why. In the dry hills of southeastern Turkey, 12,000 years ago, a group of hunter-gatherers dragged limestone blocks weighing up to 20 tons up a hillside and arranged them in precise circles. And 15 kilometers away, something even stranger is waiting. They carved wild animals into the stone with flint tools. They raised pillars standing over 16 feet tall. And then, when they were finished, they buried the entire complex under thousands of tons of rubble and walked away. No one knows exactly why. The site sat hidden beneath a mound for 11 millennia, until a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt arrived in 1994 and began to understand what he was looking at. What he found was Göbekli Tepe, a place that rewrote the history of human civilization, and a place that still refuses to give up all of its secrets. To understand why Göbekli Tepe matters, you have to understand what the world looked like in 9600 BCE. There was no writing, there was no wheel, there was no metallurgy, no pottery, no agriculture as we understand it. The people living in this region were nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving across the landscape, following herds of gazelle, picking wild grains of emmer and einkorn wheat from the fields, and sheltering in temporary camps. Conventional archaeological thinking, for most of the 20th century, held that organized religion and monumental architecture came after the development of farming and permanent settlements. The logic seemed sound enough. You need a surplus of food to free up labor, and you need settled communities to coordinate large construction projects. Göbekli Tepe dismantled that logic entirely. The people who built this complex hadn't yet domesticated crops or animals. They were doing something that, according to the old model, they shouldn't have been capable of doing at all. This was the start of something great, and it happened far earlier than anyone had been prepared to believe. Klaus Schmidt had been working across the region for years when he was directed to a site that earlier surveys, conducted in the 1960s, had dismissed as a medieval cemetery. The mound seemed unremarkable from a distance, a low rise in a field scattered with flint chips. But as Schmidt's team began excavating in earnest, T-shaped limestone pillars emerged from the soil, and it became clear that the flint chips covering the hillside weren't debris. They were the byproduct of an enormous and sustained construction effort. Excavations over the following decades revealed at least 4 major circular enclosures, designated Enclosures A through D, each consisting of 2 large central pillars surrounded by a ring of slightly smaller ones, all facing inward and connected by low stone walls. The central pillars in Enclosure D stand approximately 18 feet tall. The largest pillars across the site weigh somewhere between 10 and 20 tons each. The blocks were quarried from the limestone plateau roughly a quarter of a mile away and transported without the use of wheels or metal tools. Surveys of the surrounding area suggest there are another 15 to 20 enclosures still buried beneath the mound. Archaeologists have uncovered less than 5% of the site. The pillars themselves are among the most remarkable objects from the prehistoric world. The T-shape is not purely abstract. On several pillars, the horizontal bar of the T sits at the angle of a human shoulder, and along the sides of the vertical shaft, arms have been carved in low relief, hands coming together at the front near a carved belt. Some pillars also show items of clothing, loincloths and fox pelt garments hanging from the belt, a detail that appears on Pillar 31 in Enclosure D with particular clarity. Klaus Schmidt interpreted these figures as representations of supernatural beings or ancestors, presiding over whatever rituals took place within the enclosures, and the parallel with later Mesopotamian temple traditions, where divine statues occupied the inner sanctum, is difficult to overlook. Beyond the anthropomorphic details, the pillars are covered in animal reliefs. Foxes appear with unusual frequency across the site, along with wild boars, vultures, cranes, scorpions, and serpents. Pillar 18 in Enclosure D carries some of the finest carving found anywhere at the site. Arms, a belt, a fox figure alongside the central form, and a series of abstract H-shaped symbols, whose meaning remains unresolved. These symbols appear on multiple pillars and across multiple enclosures, suggesting a standardized visual code that was understood and deliberately repeated by the people who worked here. Perhaps one day, we will learn precisely what they meant. Around 600 limestone vessels have been recovered from the site, making this the largest known assemblage of pre-pottery Neolithic containers from the entire Near East, and the evidence strongly suggests they were used for processing and cooking cereal grains on a large scale. This points to feasting, communal gatherings that may have drawn people from considerable distances across the region to participate in rituals, consume food and drink together, and contribute labor to the ongoing construction. The social organization required to coordinate this activity, to feed the workers and maintain the enclosures across what appears to have been at least 1,500 years of active use, is difficult to square with the image of scattered, independent nomadic bands. Something was holding these people together, and whatever it was, it seems to have been rooted in the site itself. Then around 8000 BCE, the enclosures were deliberately and methodically filled with rubble, animal bones, and flint tools. The site was sealed. Whether this was a ritual act of closure, a form of preservation, or something else entirely is still debated among researchers. Göbekli Tepe is part of a broader region now called Tepeler, Stone Hills, which includes nearby sites such as Karahan Tepe, Sayburç, and Sefer Tepe, each contributing new layers to our understanding of this period. At Karahan Tepe, excavations in recent years have produced sculpted human figures and architectural forms that are in some respects more detailed than anything found at Göbekli Tepe itself, and T-shaped pillars at the site confirm that what Schmidt uncovered was not a single anomaly, but part of a regional tradition stretching across the ancient landscape of Upper Mesopotamia. The questions surrounding Göbekli Tepe, why it was built, what exactly happened inside those enclosures, and above all why it was buried, are far from settled. Every season of excavation adds new pieces, and every new piece seems to raise more questions than it answers. What we can say with certainty is this: 12,000 years ago, long before the first cities, long before writing, long before the wheel, people gathered on this hillside and built something monumental, and then chose to bury it. They left us the stones, the carvings, and the silence. The rest we are still trying to decode. 15 kilometers away, a second site is rising from the earth, larger, stranger, and in some ways older. It's called Karahan Tepe, and what archaeologists are finding there may change everything we think we know. That's where we go next. If this ancient mystery gripped you, subscribe and follow the story as it unfolds.